we want to dedicate this program to another saint, a living saint of Italian descent. And as Bob was writing about Mother Cabrini, all he kept wanting to type was Mother Angelica. So we dedicate this program to you, Mother Angelica. God bless you and bless you for all you are doing for all God's children all over the world. She started really her missionary work in the United States, as you did, and she went to the four corners of the world, wherever God's children of Italian descent were needed. You are going all over the world, wherever all God's children need to hear the word of God. So this program is for you.
Family, we want to take you back to the turn of the century, to Italy and the United States. In Italy, times were hard, and the land cruel and unyielding. So when the people of Italy heard about the promised land on the other side of the ocean, they packed what little they had, left their beloved mountains and roots to begin their dream for a better life in the New World. Not even the hot, sweltering holds of the poor steamers could dampen their hopes and expectations. As they spotted the Statue of Liberty, all their sacrifices, little or no sanitation, weeks of being seasick from the pitching and heaving caused by the turbulent waves rocking the ship, little food and less water, no air, no light, endless days and nights, all faded. Before them, behind the beautiful Statue of Liberty, was the magnificent skyline of their new home, New York City. Not even being herded like so much cattle onto Ellis Island discouraged them. They had hope.
As an American whose family came over on the boat, this is a very emotional time for me. When I look at...
Then I'll do all the talking.
I look at those who came over with so much hope, and they didn't know the language. They were in the hulls of ships for days under the worst conditions. How frightened they must have been, and how brave they were. And I am glad to say that I come from that heritage.
But they soon were to discover that this land of the free was not free for everyone. Everyone was equal, but some were more equal than others. They did not know the language, therefore they did not understand Americans, and Americans did not understand them. This was mistaken for ignorance, and they were treated as second-class citizens. The dream became a nightmare, with the unscrupulous taking advantage of the innocent. Unable to defend themselves, Italian immigrants worked in sweatshops, making slave wages, and lived under subhuman conditions. In times of crisis, God raises up super saints. On the other side of the ocean, God was raising up a powerful woman in the church whom he would use to aid her countrymen struggling to belong in this new land of hope. Family, we begin our story of St. Francis Xavier Cabrini in Sant'Angelo Lodigiano in Italy, in the Lombardia area of Italy. She was born here on July 15th, 1850, and on the day that she was born, her father was in the courtyard trying to shoo away all of these doves, white doves that flocked all over their backyard. And he couldn't get them to leave. He didn't quite understand why they were here, but later on he realized that the Lord had sent them because he had a very special daughter that was born on that day.
Now, they had never seen doves here. Pigeons, yes, but doves, no. So right from the very beginning, she was to bring peace to people who were just devastated, all hope taken away from them, a helpless people in a land that had promised them hope. So it was very symbolic of the work that our Mother Cabrini would do.
Now, Francis, she was called Chiacchino. Chiacchino means Chiacchina means little chatterbox. She was called Chiacchina. She lived here most of her life. Her sister Rosa taught her everything she knew. Rosa was a school teacher, and so because of that, Francesca wanted to become a school teacher as well, and this is how she began what was to become a great career, helping people.
It gave her her foundation. She learned to love children very much, and so she had a mother's heart. Her sister Rosa gave her this mother's heart because she was such a strong influence on her life.
Now, she wanted to be a nun. She, after she had received First Holy Communion, I think the year after?
At 9 years old, she was given special dispensation to receive Holy Communion. Because, in those days, you had to be 12. But she was so brilliant. Rosa had prepared her so well, spiritually and intellectually, to receive our Lord Jesus, that she had special dispensation. So at 9, she received our Lord for the first time.
2 years after, at age 11, she asked her parish priest if she could take a perpetual vow of virginity. And he, being a wise man, allowed her to take 1 year vow. And at the end of that year, he would allow her to renew it for another year. But at the end of that first year, when Francesca renewed her vow, she renewed it perpetually for the rest of her life.
Francesca had a hunger to go to China as a missionary, but her parents sent her to a convent school where she remained until at 18 she earned her teaching credentials and began teaching. The children loved her. When smallpox hit the village, Francesca and her sister worked day and night helping the victims of the epidemic. She contracted smallpox, but was spared the scars. When she recovered, she was sent to another small village to take the place of a teacher who had fallen ill. It was there she met Father Antonio Cerati, who became a lifelong friend and advisor. Father Cerati was transferred to the small village of Codogno, where an orphanage was being poorly handled. He asked Francesca to come and work in the orphanage.
Francesca walked into a situation filled with intrigues and infighting. The woman who financed the orphanage made herself head of it and was causing problems, the reason Francesca was asked to come in the first place. On the Feast of the Triumph of the Cross, September the 14th, 1877, she took her vows as a religious and was officially put in charge of the orphanage. The woman formerly in charge became unglued. Francesca's problems multiplied. The bishop finally closed the orphanage. Through the trials she endured in the orphanage, she gained the strength she would need to walk through other trials in her life. After the bishop closed the orphanage, he sat Francesca down and said to Mother, we don't have a community similar to what you're looking for. So why don't you start your own community?
And so she started right here in Codogno, the first mission. They were with 6 other sisters. There were 7 sisters altogether, and they started the mission of the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Now he said to them, go and look for a house, or I have a house that might be suitable for you. And he told her where it was, and it was too opulent for Mother. And she said, no, we have an idea where we would like to go. And she came to this place, this abandoned Franciscan convent, which was in terrible, terrible shape, terrible
need
disrepair.
of much love.
Took a tremendous amount of love and work on the part of those 7 sisters to put this into any kind of shape. But she was the kind of person who could do it, and she did it. And this became the mother house of the community. And from here, everything stemmed until they finally went to Rome.
Even though she founded a house every year, ogni anno,
nuova casa.
See? This was always home to her.
This was headquarters.
So whenever she went anywhere, she went to the United States, she came back, she stayed here. This was her home.
She'd stop off in Rome because that was where the action was, but then she would come here because this is where she lived. This is where she could be comfortable with her sisters. And finally, after having worked for a few years, and the bishop would ask her to start an orphanage here, start a school there, and she would start them in the immediate area of Lombardy, which is where this is. Finally, she felt it was time to go to Rome and get official recognition from the Vatican, start a house in the Rome. That was very important to her. And so she went to Rome, and a cardinal greeted her and another sister and said, well, where's your money? And she said, we have no money. Oh, okay, you don't stand a chance. You're never going to get anything happening here in Rome unless you can finance it. But stay here for a few weeks. I'm going on a trip, and when I come back, we'll talk again. So they prayed for 2 weeks, and the cardinal came back, and apparently he had gotten the ear of the Pope, and he said, not only are you going to open one orphanage here in Rome, you're going to open 2. So they opened, and when they would open an orphanage, they would open a house. So they opened 2 houses and 2 orphanages in Rome, and from that, the mother house started in Rome, where it is till today.
We're with Sister Clemencia.
Suor Clemenza.
Clemenza. Clement, I guess we would say in English. And we asked her how many sisters there are. And she replied that the sisters are older. And more mature. And we said better.
Better, right.
But there is a need. This is such a wonderful mission for young women. The need is still there. The need, I believe the need is there even more than when she first set out to help the poor immigrants who had gone to the United States from Italy. We've been traveling a great deal in this country and all over the world, and there is such a need for missionaries.
For vocations. We need vocations desperately. We need good vocations desperately. But in order to get vocations, we believe we need role models. And this is why we're bringing you role models such as Mother Cabrini. You know, she was one of the most powerful women in the United States, in New York, at the turn of the century. And we need people like that, but we've got to know more about Mother Cabrini's so that we can show our young people, this is what you want to fashion your life after, this lady, not the other people that you're doing.
And you know, if you've been refused at one convent or one community, be like Mother Cabrini. Keep trying.
And as St. Francis said.
And if you can't go in the front door, you go in the back window. If you have a calling, then persevere.
Pursue your calling. The Lord will make it. He may want you to suffer in order to achieve what you're looking for. He may want that for you so that you never, ever take it for granted. We don't want anybody to take anything that the Lord has given us, especially in our church, for granted.
Mother Cabrini was a strong woman, and the women we've met here today are strong women. We need you, strong women, to help bring our church gloriously, triumphantly into the 3rd millennium.
On the other side of the world, in the United States, Italian immigrants were being taken advantage of by unscrupulous employers and landlords who saw them not as people, but as those who could be mistreated and misused because they were trying to make a place for themselves in competition with a vast sea of other immigrants trying to do the same. God raised up a hero for these immigrants, Bishop Cabrini of the Diocese of Piacenza, Italy. He committed himself to helping the plight of those who had gone overseas in the hope of a better life, only to find that their life had become a living hell. He founded an order of missionaries, but the need far exceeded the help. Mother Cabrini and her sisters were just what was needed to help ease the explosive situation mushrooming across the ocean.
The bishop asked Mother Cabrini to open a convent in New York, but as much as she sympathized with her countrymen's plight, her eyes were on the Far East. She rejected his proposal, gently but firmly, and never gave his proposition another thought. However, while she forgot about it, Bishop Cabrini did not. The problem was escalating, and so was his urgency to turn it around. At the same time, Archbishop Corrigan of New York was feeling pressure from the Vatican to resolve the problems of the Italian immigrants.
An Italian countess offered Archbishop Corrigan a home and financing for an orphanage for homeless Italian girls. At the request of Bishop Cabrini, he invited Mother Cabrini and her community to come to New York and open the orphanage. Reluctant to say yes, she turned to the Holy Father. Now, the Pope, aware of the problems in New York, had been praying someone would step forward to alleviate the suffering of his flock in the New World.
His Holiness listened respectfully to Mother Cabrini as she shared how she really wanted to go to the missions in China. Our great Leo XIII smiled as he said, "You must not go to the east, but to the west. Your mission will be in America to help the Italians and to make your country loved." True to her vow of obedience, she accepted the Holy Father's mandate as the final word and never mentioned the Orient again. She left for Caledonia, where she prepared the sisters to carry on without her for a while. Then she set out armed with letters from important personages in the Vatican, especially the one from His Holiness.
Coming over in the hold of the ship, and it was a terrible experience for all those people who came over from Italy to the United States. But it did have, in Mother Cabrini's case, there was some humor to it. It was dark humor, maybe Irish humor. When they came over, she had been deathly afraid of going into the water because she had had an experience as a child where she fell into the water, and from that time on was very afraid of the water.
She would pick the wild violets, make paper boats, and she would lean over and put them in the water. And she thought, as an infant, as a child, as a toddler, and a little older, that these boats with the violets were her missionaries, and the little paper boats were going to China.
Oh,
well,
wow.
It was one day that she was leaning over a little too far that she was cast into it's a very rapid moving stream. I've seen it, and it just gushes past. And she was almost drowned at that time, so she developed more than just a fear of water. She was terrified of the water, and yet crossed the ocean 23 times. Almost any Cabrinian institution that you'll visit, you'll somewhere see a motif of violets, whether it's a vase of violets or something with a little violet painted on it. So the violets became a symbol also of humility, because violets are tiny little flowers that grow just freely.
Yeah.
And I remember when we made our profession, we had a little crown, I think, of roses, lilies, and violets. And so violet was just picked up as something that symbolized the humility of Mother Cabrini. And she thought of her community, you alluded to a garden before, as just a little young plant in the garden of the church, in the garden of the Lord. And so the violets have just stayed with us throughout the years.
I have to tell you also something. Was saying that when she arrived, the Scalabrini priests brought them somewhere to eat. They ate, and then she asked where her convent was and found out there was no convent. And so she and the sisters with the Scalabrini priests went from boarding house to boarding house, trying to find a place that would be quasi-suitable and that they could afford. And the one that they landed in seemed all right until the other members who were going to occupy, had already occupied their bedrooms, stayed hidden until the lights went out.
Brother Ant and Brother Mouse.
And then they scurried out. And so here you just envision these sisters sleeping on chairs, their feet up, and Mother Cabrini, the mommy, just watching to make sure that they didn't hurt her sisters.
When she arrived, the bishop, the Archbishop of New York, had sent her a letter not to come, that everything had fallen through, and she hadn't received it, and she got to his office, and he said, "What are you doing here? I sent you a letter not to come." "Oh, well, you can catch the same boat that you came in on to take you back." And the nuns that were with Mother almost died for the thought of having to go back on that boat again.
But she was strong.
Yeah.
And she said, "The Pope sent me here, and I will not leave."
I have a mission, and I will carry out the mission that I've been given. Now, she also had all her dots dotted and all her T's crossed. I's dotted and T's crossed, because she had letters from the Pope, from cardinals, from bishops in Rome, and the Archbishop of New York could do nothing but back down and help her get started in New York City.
Mother Cabrini was only in New York City 2 days, and she went to the parish of St. Joachim, where the Scalabrini fathers had just arrived the year before, and it was the girls from the candy factories that came and helped her take care of these hundreds of children who hadn't had much discipline at all. Many of them were not in school, and they helped her settle them down so that she could teach religion to them. And I remember one of the sisters, who was a young woman at the time, wrote about the first novena that they had of Pentecost. And up in the balcony with this little figure of Mother Cabrini, who had a silver voice, and she just started singing the Veni Sancte Spiritus, Come Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And all eyes just turned up, and the children, there was something, she was so filled with the love of God herself that she just was able to make tangible that love to others. And so the children and the older people, some of them whom had not been to church in 20, 30, 40 years, depending upon how long they'd been in the United States, were just drawn to this woman who helped to lead them to God.
So that she led the children, and the children led the parents.
Exactly. That's why the schools were open.
Wasn't there also a situation where the young girls were on the streets, where many of their parents couldn't care for them, couldn't take care of them, and some very unscrupulous people started to use these young girls, and she gathered them up and brought them into a home, and took care of them, fed their souls, their bodies, and she taught. Now, she also taught the Italians. She was very much like Junipero Serra, who did not just hand people a fish. He taught them how to fish. And as St. Paul tells us, she was that way too.
Yes, very much so. For example, you know, when you say these young girls, there were state institutions, but the practice at the time was at 14 years of age, the girl would be left on her own. So Mother Cabrini went counter to this, even though she didn't get any money for it except the pennies, nickels, and dimes collecting. And she would not, she would keep the girls until they were 18 years of age. They had some foundation in education, and also could do embroidery, could repair some of the lace lingerie of the well-to-do Italians, so that they would be able to earn a livelihood once they left her home.
Praise God.
When she asked Pope Leo XIII, he said, a sister said, "You're China. It's in America. You're to go there and make your country, you go there, help your brothers and sisters, and make your country loved, known and loved." And that she did. I really believe that people like my father and others of our ancestors that came here were shown by this lady, this strong lady, that they could be something important and viable in this country. And so they suffered. They took any job they could. I remember seeing my grandmother pulling the threads at home because she was crippled, and also because she had to take care of me. I saw the poverty of the people, but every one of them worked. And my mother from the time she was a very young girl, worked in the factories, and it was, what did they call it, a sweatshop. They worked in the sweatshops.
I'm not sure where we saw this. I'm not sure if it was at the Cabrini Center or, not exactly sure, but the statement was, we were given to believe that New York the streets were lined with gold. When we got to New York, we found out the streets not only were not lined with gold, but there were no streets. And they wanted us to build the streets. And there may have been a little resentment to that, but this is what it was for all immigrants, all people who came over. We all became a part of building this country. And so when Mother Cabrini came over, she gave these dear people a means to be a part of building this country. She also was considered the real estate lady in New York. After she got here and she started building orphanages, anytime anybody had something they thought she could use, they would contact her, and that's how she got West Park on the Hudson River. The Jesuits contacted her and said, "We have this piece of property which would probably be great for you." Family, we're here at West Park in upstate New York on the Hudson. This was the original convent in the United States of Mother Cabrini. And we're here with Sister Regina Patterson and Sister Lena And we're standing in front of a wagon, a carriage, that was here during the life of Mother Cabrini.
But just picture her going all over the United States with something like this. Is that what she used, Mother, the sister?
She went by train.
By train and or by
But, yeah, but this was the
principal.
Transportation.
Local
New York,
transport,
from New York City to here.
Yeah.
Is that right? Well, let's see. How many miles is that?
And then besides
From
New York to here?
from New York City, right? Well, you're also talking about,
It's about
trying to get
yeah.
across the.
Just to give you an
You say
idea.
at least
About
70,
85
85 miles.
The
Yeah.
first trip that they took to Nicaragua took 10 days, I think, to get there. Today it would take about, from Miami, it would take about 3.5 hours. So her traveling, and she traveled all over the world.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that the traveling she did was what we would consider extremely primitive. And yet she went to all these places. Praise God.
And at one point, she went over the Andes on muleback.
Yeah.
I just said at one point she went over the Andes on muleback because although she was petrified of water, she would cross the water because she felt that the Lord was calling her to the other side. But when one of the other sisters was really afraid of water, she agreed to go over the Andes rather
Oh,
than
wow.
take her on a boat. And so we have accounts of her going over the Andes, and all of that meant, and sometimes she felt it was very perilous, certainly in the traveling.
Yeah, what about her story that she jumped from there to go over? The mule just actually jumped over from one
Precipice to the
other.
Oh my!
Yeah. And she told
and she held her saddle.
and she says it herself.
We're standing here with Sister Regina Peterson in front of an original building that was here when the Jesuits offered the land to Mother Cabrini over 100 years ago. So the building in back of us is over 100 years old. And so while she was in Italy, the Jesuits contacted her for the pasta. This was called Manresa at the time, I believe, which is after St. Ignatius of Loyola. And they contacted Mother about purchasing this property up here on the Hudson. It's beautiful, beautiful property.
So you can just picture her speeding as quickly as she could across the ocean and then to this spot.
Now, when Mother Cabrini got here, the Jesuits had not told her this in advance, but when she got here and looked at this magnificent, beautiful property, she said, this is it. This is what we need for the orphanage for the girls. And then they dropped the bomb. Well, there's only one problem, is there is no water here. Right now, we go down to the Hudson River to draw water from it, but it's not good water. And so Mother said...
definitely can't drink it.
Yeah, it's not the kind of water you could use for the orphanage. I mean, it's okay if you wanted to use it for 10 or 12 nuns, but for an orphanage of a lot of young people, you couldn't do it. Mother Cabrini said, no problem, the Lord will take care of it. And so she bought the property. And I probably would have been out of my mind with fear that it was not going to work. Can we dig a well? How many gallons a minute can we get from the well? We need all this water for these young people. Instead, she got all her sisters together with shovels and said, okay, let's dig. And they all went.
First they prayed.
Oh, of course they prayed.
Not of course they prayed. That's something that we forget, especially me. I'm the Martha and I forget to be the Mary. Now, make no mistake about it. Mother Cabrini was as much Mary as she was Martha. So she got
maybe
them
it
all
was
together.
60-40.
Yeah, and 60-40, I would say, would be
Prayer.
Mary 60. She was a woman of prayer and faith. She was really not dependent on herself. She couldn't be because she was so sickly. How could she depend on a sickly body that was going to die any minute? No, she depended on God and His will. She had come to do God's will as she knew it through, guess what? Through her Pope. Her Pope had said she was to do this, and it was God, to her, that was God speaking. And so this woman of will said, okay, let's go and pray. And after they prayed, she said, okay, get your shovels and let's go.
And one of the sisters said, it's starting to get dark. I can feel something underneath. It looks dark underneath him. Keep digging, keep digging. And then they all gathered around.
Squeal, I think I see a little water.
And
keep digging, keep digging.
And long story short, they came up with the water that was needed. The water that they came up with was springs, not from the Hudson River, but these were natural springs that were running underground.
Okay,
for
now,
the orphanage.
that water is used till today. Now, Sister has told us that they have had to supplement it because of county regulations. But the water is used till today for these young people and for the sisters that are serving here. Do miracles happen? Yes. And this story is a little more than the story of a saint, if I may be so bold. It is the story of a living saint. We see not only God forming her from the time she is born into the person she will be, but that person will be perpetuated in the sisters and in the charism. This is a very strong community that has remained faithful to the charism of their foundress.
And as we have seen in doing our research and going to all the places that where Mother Cabrini touched the people, she is very much alive, very active. Her charism has only grown. It's as if she was still here, guiding everybody in what to do. It's just become an enormous undertaking, and it could only be done through the power of God.
You know, some of you out there are saying, well, she was a nun, you know, and people feel specially towards nuns, and they're more generous towards nuns. Give me a break. She was a woman who came here at a time that the Catholic faith was not the most popular thing, you know.
Well, I believe there were 50,000 Italians here. There were 5 priests and about 1,200 people going to Mass at any given time. So the odds were very much against her.
And those 1,200 people probably didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. So she came of poverty, and she came to help poverty. And she was relying on those who probably didn't even want it. You know, at that time, initially, they encouraged Italians to come over, as they did all the different ethnic groups. But then they started to grow, you know. They started to have children, and they started to grow, and all of a sudden they didn't want those people around. They wanted people who more fit their Anglo-Saxon image. And so they started to bring about certain immigration laws, and then
of course cutbacks.
And of course there were the unscrupulous who could use people who didn't understand what they were saying. Have you ever been in a foreign country? I know that years ago, before we could speak the different languages, I find myself saying "see" to almost everything and wondering if I just sold my house. You know, they came here, and all they wanted to do was please. All they wanted to do was to be Americans. And so Mother Cabrini did not have the help from her own, as you would expect. The reason I tell you this is, so many of us say, what can I do? What can I do? I can't do anything. Who am I? I want you to look at this woman who came here, left her family, gave everything up, came here, impossible odds. The Archbishop didn't even want her. And look at what she's done. That has survived 100 years in this country and has spread to the 4 corners of the world.
Now, one other thing I would just like to mention about Mother Cabrini, because she was always trying to play down her spirituality to the public, not to her sisters, but to the public. Her spirituality was overpowered by the enormous amount of work that she did, the missionary work that she accomplished. But in this instance, where they were praying and digging, the sisters were digging and Mother was praying. And if you were able to see Mother while this was going on, you may possibly have seen somebody who was having an intimate conversation with God. And God led them to the places where they were supposed to dig, and that's how the water came about. But you would never hear that from her. She would say, well, this is what we're supposed to have, and so we got it.
And you know, in a time of disobedience, where disobedience is politically correct, here is the story of a woman who was obedient, and being obedient, doing what would appear to the world the ridiculous. She did the miraculous. She didn't like anybody using the word miracle concerning her and things that happened with her. I think she used to like to say she had friends in high places.
Well, she really did. One of Mother Cabrini's greatest accomplishments was the Columbus Hospital in New York, which began in 1892 on the 4th centenary of Christopher Columbus. When the Italian community of nuns who had been running a small hospital returned to Italy, Bishop Scalabrini offered it to Mother Cabrini. She wasn't sure she should take it as there were financial irregularities. Then one of her sisters reported that while working in a city hospital, they came upon an Italian who had a letter which he had been holding for 3 months because he couldn't find anyone to read it to him. Upon opening it, the sisters found it contained news of his mother's death. If he had been in their hospital, at least he would have known sooner, and they would have consoled him.
And she had a dream, and in this dream, she remembers the Blessed Mother is kneeling, or is leaning over a cot in a hospital, and her sleeves are all rolled up, her dress is pinned, and Francesca says to her, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm doing what you don't want to do." And so that's how Mother Cabrini got converted to healthcare and opened so many hospitals, nursing schools, dispensaries, clinics throughout the United States, Latin America, and our sisters continue today on several continents.
But with this first hospital, Mother Cabrini had reason to go forward with great caution. The owners of the hospital were not very reputable. Her suspicions were well-founded. Within a few months, the administrators tried to make Mother Cabrini pay for the expenses of the hospital. She said she would, on condition she take full charge of the hospital. She was shown the door. Now, she had a mandate from Mother Mary, and she refused to leave. Then the patients refused to leave. The Lord saved the day at the 11th hour. Mother was able to purchase 2 buildings, which she turned into a hospital, and although smaller than the other hospital, she was able to place the patients there. She got enough donations to buy new beds and some new equipment. The facilities were meager, but it was a beginning, and from this beginning grew the Columbus Hospital, now called Mother Cabrini Medical Center.
Bishops from all over the world began asking Mother to open orphanages and schools in their dioceses. Pope Leo XIII had told her he wanted the missionaries of the Sacred Heart to extend the kingdom of God to the whole world, and to that end she worked to the end of her life. During her lifetime, she opened convents and schools, orphanages and hospitals in her native Italy and various parts of Europe. She continued opening convents in the United States, in Chicago, New Orleans, Denver, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and on and on. Then she went to Central America, to Nicaragua, to Panama, to South America, including Argentina, Chile, and Peru. On the first trip to Nicaragua, when they started to get into the area where the people, there had been sort of advanced publicity that they were coming, and all the people were coming out and welcoming them. And the sisters were saying, "Mother, this is so wonderful. Look how much they love us." And she says, "Don't get impressed, because as much as they love you now, they can turn on you." Political unrest is always a factor. Do not get impressed. And of course, it wound up to be a prophecy, because a year or 2 later is when they had to leave.
So there's so many cute little things that happened. Of course, when these things are happening, we don't think they're cute, and I'm sure Mother Cabrini didn't think they were cute. But one of them that I remember, as you were talking about South America, do you remember when she, where was it, Nicaragua, where she was she was invited with her sisters to come down to Nicaragua, and these women financed the trip. And when she got there, after an arduous traveling on the water, as we all know, she was deadly afraid of the water because she'd had an incident where she fell in, remember, with her little boat. Anyway, the servants who were serving them were in not a very, let's say, it was much too much informal, with too much revealed, like my grandson says, too much history, too much revealed.
It was very hot.
They were naked from the waist up.
And so, Mother Cabrini said, "I'm sorry. You see, she wasn't politically correct. She said, I'm sorry, if you're going to be dressed like that, we're not going to eat at this table. Well, of course, they were in a shock. They were shocked that she would say something like that. But this shy little woman, 5'2", I can't.
No. They say 5 feet, but it was really 4'11 and a half about.
My buddy. My buddy. Okay, this gentle, shy little woman stood her ground, and the servants covered themselves. Well, that was a little touchy situation, but then remember, when she opened the school, she would not allow children to come to the school whose parents weren't married. Most of them there were not married. That created such an uproar, they were stoning the sisters.
Shooting into the building.
Shooting into the building, but she, again, never compromised her values. And sure enough, they all started to get married, and those who married were her strongest supporters. But she was also very tough. She was tough. I remember a sister was talking about the situation where her sisters were in Nicaragua, which had problems at that time. Political problems. And one day the government came, the soldiers, and knocked on the door and told them they had to get out immediately. And so the sisters packed what little they had and left pretty much the way they'd come, with just what they were wearing. And so one of the people turned to one of the sisters and said, why aren't you crying? And she said, we leave as we have come.
You know, that story has a happy ending many years later. Those sisters went to Panama, and they started an academy there in Panama. And years later, I believe it was in the 1920s, the sisters were re-invited back to Nicaragua. And later on, in the 70s, given the key to the city. And
now, that was after she
after
died.
her death, yes.
Because, do you remember what she said? She said, I will never allow my sisters back there unless they reimburse us for, and she wanted a formal apology, and she wanted assurance that nothing would happen to her sisters. She was very much a mother. Very much. And this is one of the things she learned in Italy with her school, as a school teacher. She learned how to nurture. She had, now another thing was that she drew many young women to her. And they became sisters because of this dynamic but very loving mother. Like, I have to say, like Mother Angelica, who definitely is a strong woman. I've never met a foundress yet who is not a strong woman, but you have to see her with her nuns. Then you just see this mother, strong, but very gentle, loving, nurturing mother. And that's how I see Mother Cabrini.
And I think you see her correctly.
Do you have any other stories? You were telling us such great little stories.
The one about New Orleans?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a veritable storyteller. She doesn't know that.
When yellow fever struck in New Orleans back in the 1890s, at the very beginning of this century, many of the Italians were very much in fear, and in awe, but in fear of the municipal authorities. One story goes that a man was taken to the hospital and given medicine, and he said to the wife, "Go home and give this to the goat." And the goat died. So there was just panic. These were the kind of stories that were going around. But when yellow fever struck, it struck most severely in what was called Little Palermo, that center of what is now the French Quarter in New Orleans, where our sisters had established their center in New Orleans. And women would be in the home dying, and the children would be walking around playing. The sisters would come in and just gather the children together, and in one instance the mother would die happily, knowing that their children would be taken care of. And one of the pictures that I showed you all these little orphans from the yellow fever. The ambulance would come each day from the Marine Hospital and fumigate our house, just to show them that fumigation would help, not hinder the situation. And each day, the sisters were out in the streets with the medical personnel from the armed forces, trying to assist the public health officials. Priests were not always welcomed in the homes, but these little sisters who had nothing and were in no way a threat, they were very much welcomed. And so they were able to bring the doctors into the houses, bring people, stay with them in the ambulances until they got to the hospitals.
A minor miracle took place through the working of the missionaries of the Sacred Heart in New Orleans. In those days, during the typhoid epidemic, the sisters recalled a similar problem which the Lord had resolved for them in Marseille, France. It was a cholera epidemic. The sisters had made and distributed hundreds of scapulars of the Sacred Heart. Then they prayed for all they were worth. The epidemic passed and all who wore the scapular were saved from cholera. They decided to do the same thing in New Orleans. They hurriedly made as many scapulars of the Sacred Heart as they could and passed them out as quickly as possible, as the epidemic was about to reach plague proportions. They also did the most important thing they could have done. They prayed for the intercession of the Sacred Heart. Sure enough, the Lord came through, and everyone who wore the scapular was excluded from the disease.
You know, in Louisiana, many of the Italians worked right with the Negroes, the African Americans, right in picking the cotton.
Oh, wow.
And the sisters would go out there, and on Sundays they were allowed to use the public school facilities to teach religion to the children and to all those that needed help. And in New Orleans itself, men would come, the fishermen would go out 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Our door would be open, and the chaplain would be there to say Mass for them early on a Sunday morning in the middle of the night.
And again, men from Sicily, a very natural vocation would be fishermen. And then you were telling us about the prison. That interests me.
One of the very interesting things is that naturally, being in a new country, someone could not defend themselves if they were brought before a judge. And so while there were many Italians that had committed crimes, as well as Irish, German, and all other nationalities, there were many who were incarcerated simply because no one would defend them. No one understood what they were talking about.
Yes. And they didn't understand what they were being asked.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Mother Cabrini's sisters, and then said to Mother Cabrini, you know, may we help out the prisoners? Well, of course you help out the prisoners. And I think one of the most poignant stories that I remember reading about is one of the young men on death row. The sisters made it possible for his mother to come from Sicily to America, and they brought her to visit with him before he was executed, and then they took care of her afterwards. But in many cases, like in Sing Sing prison, there was no Italian chaplain, so the sisters would go, be with the men, try to bring them back to the practice of their religion, and accompany them to the extent they could before their execution, and even send their own chaplain to be a chaplain to the prisoners. And there's been many beautiful letters written by the prisoners to Mother Cabrini thanking her for this kind of work.
We're given a strong sense of the spirituality of Mother Cabrini and the thoughts of one of her nuns that came with her on that first trip to New York in March of 1889. She said, finally, after 12 days of sickness and tribulation, on March 31st, 1889, we saw the beautiful Statue of Liberty at about 4 o'clock. Oh, how happy Mother Cabrini was. I could read the joy on her face. A tear fell down her cheek. She called us together to sing the Ave Maris Stella.
She drew her strength truly from prayer. The sisters would get up about 5 o'clock in the morning for an hour of meditation. She would rise at 4 o'clock in the morning to make a personal hour before that communal hour of meditation. And many times, you know, you'd be talking to her and she'd almost seem far away because she was always united to God. Whether she was on a train going from New York to Portland, Oregon for days and days, you know, always united to God and very devoted to the Blessed Mother. She would talk to Mary sometimes as Maria mia dolce mamma. She used to say a lui to him, mi abbandono totalmente. I abandon myself totally. And I think this is really the crux of her spirituality, that she just gave herself completely and entirely with God, to God. And she said, I'm not even an instrument in the hands of God. God is doing everything. I'm just a spectator of his marvels.
On December the 22nd, 1917, Mother Cabrini died at the convent in Chicago. Her body lay in state there for a time and then was brought to the high school in Fort Tryon Park, where it laid in state for a while, and then was brought here to West Park. She had always expressed a desire to be buried here at the convent in West Park. And so she was in the tomb that you see in back of us, up at the original cemetery where most of the original sisters were buried as well. And she was kept there until 1933, when the cause for her beatification was taking off, and they wanted the body back in Fort Tryon Park, and so she was brought back to the chapel, which had been built at the high school in Fort Tryon Park, which is today the library. There is a canon which states that a person must be dead for 50 years before a cause can be opened.
Canon 2101.
Now that's been changed quite a bit lately, and especially in the case of Mother Cabrini, 11 years after she died, Cardinal Mundelein of Chicago opened the cause for her beatification. It was she was just such a powerful, powerful person.
Upon her death, 150,000 petitions were granted through her intercession. 150,000. You know, like many of the saints, the great saints, Mother Cabrini, I can tell you personally, was declared a saint before the church did.
Mother Cabrini was beatified on November the 13th, 1938, and on July the 7th, 1946, she was the first American citizen to be canonized and the first canonization during the pontificate of Pope Pius XII. In 1950, Pope Pius XII declared her patroness of the immigrants. We're here at the convent in West Philadelphia with Mother Ursula Infante, who is one of the more mature of the sisters of Mother Cabrini. Sister Ursula was received into the community by Mother Cabrini.
83 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay. You tell us.
How did that happen?
How did it happen?
Well, my parents did not agree with my entering the convent. They had other ideas for my life. So I made arrangements with Mother Cabrini to leave home without telling them. So on that morning, July 15th, 1915, I dressed, went to Mass, and had my breakfast at home, and I took the subway for the Sacred Heart Villa at 190th Street. Did you go there?
Yes,
That's
we
where
did.
our tomb, yeah. And Mother Cabrini was there waiting for me because she had made the arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And she dressed me as a postulant.
For those of you who may not have heard the year, it was the year 1915 when Sister left home to come here to be entered into the community by Mother Cabrini. 1915, Sister Ursula is now 102 years young.
Is that right?
Yes.
Sister, if you had it to do all over again, would you become a sister?
I would do it twice over again.
Twice over again. Praise you, Jesus.
I felt it was my vocation. I prayed to do God's will. And I wanted that very much.
Sister Ursula, what would you say to young girls today? They really need to hear from someone like you. What would you say to young women today?
Join a convent.
Join a convent.
Did you hear that? Join
you,
a convent. What we need in this world is dedication, and we need strength. When we wrote about the martyrs, we wrote with the prayer that you would understand the price that was paid for this church, and you would defend her and fight for her
Now, when we bring you Mother Cabrini, we ask you once again, did she do it for nothing? Was it all wasted? Remember what Mother Cabrini came to do in the United States and then into the world. And you pick up that torch that was lit by her and carry it.
We had a Mother Cabrini, we had a Mother Teresa, we have a Mother Angelica. We need more mothers to help save our church and our world.
And so, you brides of Christ, remember why you became nuns and get about the business of serving your spouse, our Lord Jesus. We love you.
God bless you. Thank you, Father.
Grazie tanto.
The program